Hello and welcome to today's episode of Stand Up, where I will be joined by journalist Jonathan Larsen, who is the curator of a great Substack called The Fucking News with almost 100,000 followers on Substack, and very happy to have him back on the show. Interesting, thoughtful, very smart conversation with Jonathan. If you want to skip the headlines and clips, you can jump to that conversation. It begins at 18 minutes today. But oh man, plenty of headlines and clips for you. Well, it's not too much, but I mean, two big stories, I guess, maybe three. First and foremost, the United States is out of the World Cup. Graham Plattner is out of the Senate race, and Mitch McConnell is not out of the hospital. Those are a few stories I was following yesterday and more, so let's get to it. Can't do any of it without you. This is an ad-free show. If you're a subscriber, thank you. I am so grateful to every paid subscriber. You can always pay more if you want, but if you're not a paid subscriber, sign up now. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic, or you can get a paid subscription on Substack, but definitely please get a free paid subscription on Substack. That way you will likely be notified when I go live, which I should be doing today with the great Jeff Jarvis around 11 a.m. East. But now it's time to get to those headlines from yesterday. I mentioned three of the top stories, get more into it with the clip show, but also wanted to mention that a federal judge ruled that sweeping pardons granted to the January 6th rioters do not apply to the man accused of planting bombs outside the RNC and DNC. The suspect from Virginia was arrested in December last year after investigators used phone data and his purchase records to identify him. He subsequently confessed to placing the viable explosive devices on the evening of January 5th. His defense team argued that the act was linked to political events of January 6th, should be covered by Trump's pardons, but U.S. District Judge rejected this argument, stating the pardon explicitly applied to those who were convicted of actions on the day of the Capitol attack. So no luck for that guy. Was he the guy who actually did it? Well, he did confess to it. The regime is apparently not so making America healthy again. They keep doing things that are very unhealthy. They're apparently departing from a landmark Biden-era report that detailed human health risks, including cancer from farms contaminated with forever chemicals. The EPA this week issued a draft guidance document criticizing the Biden administration risk assessment, detailing health hazards from applying contaminated sludge to farmland. Critics of the move say the administration's walking away from regulating and its duty to protect the public from forever chemicals, also known as PFAS. So they're all right with forever chemicals, I guess. And their CDC, which is not so trustworthy, is now warning of an increase of the spread of a parasite called cyclosporiasis that is typically spread through contaminated food or water. Oh, this is good news. The CDC reporting 145 cases across 17 states between May 1st and June 16th. A sudden cluster of cases has emerged in Michigan, where the spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services told Healthline.com that as of July 2nd, the state had identified 300 cases. Typically, Michigan identifies only about 50 cases of cyclosporiasis per year. This parasite can cause explosive diarrhea. While there have been reports of hospitalizations from the infection, there have been no reports of death. So I guess it's not that serious, but it does not sound like fun because it generally spreads when the food you eat is already contaminated with feces. Ooh, yikes. I don't want it. All right, what else can I tell you? Trump is in Turkey for a NATO summit. That should go really well, especially focused on the war in Ukraine. He spent apparently 90 minutes talking to Putin yesterday. What could they possibly have been talking about? A group of 1,205 Justice Department alum are urging the Senate Judiciary Committee to reject Todd Blanche's nomination to become permanent AG. They sent a letter to the chairman and crypt keeper Chuck Grassley and ranking member, also keeper of the crypt, Dick Durbin. Signatories note plenty of attention will be given to the corruption and abuses that had defined Blanche's tenure, but we want to focus on an area that deserves just as much attention: Todd Blanche's degradation of Department of Justice's apolitical career workforce. So there's that. Yesterday, also, the preliminary hearing for the alleged killer of Charlie Kirk began in Provo, Utah. See if there's enough evidence for a trial. States across the U.S. are now seeing steep declines in Obamacare enrollments this year, including drop-offs about a third of enrollees in Ohio and Oklahoma. That's according to the first batch of federal data breaking down the nationwide effects of January's expiration of Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. So that's not good. Apparently, the Cuban crisis is continuing. They've descended into an island-wide blackout yesterday amid plummeting fuel reserves and a crumbling electric grid as the Trump regime continues squeezing the country. And Evanuel Johnson, whose 20-year-old grandson, Tyron Johnson, was shot and killed by the National Guard in Memphis this past weekend, demanding the police release video to support claims that he pointed a gun at the troops before he was shot. And, of course, finally, Belgium beat the hell out of the U.S. team. I think I mentioned that at the top, but even with the intervention of our commander-in-chief to get the star forward's red card suspension overturned, they still couldn't win. And that guy, I don't even think he touched the ball. I don't even remember his name being called last night, but it was an embarrassing performance, and it's over for all of the host teams. Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. are all out of the World Cup in North America. All right, those are the headlines that I've gathered for you. Let's get to the clip show. I've got several reactions to the breaking news yesterday about Graham Plattner that I want to share with you. Let's start with Amanda Nelson, who was my guest on yesterday's show. I always love her commentary. A little bit of what she had to say when people were reacting on social media of support for Graham Plattner. She's done, as are all the rest of the women and most progressive that I respect.
Y'all have really got to grow up. I'm sorry. Your emotional attachment to Graham Plattner at this point is stopping you from being rational. I'm not saying all of this about Graham Plattner because it's like a smear campaign from the Republicans. This was our fault. Graham Plattner is a piece of shit. He was not vetted. He was put into this race by a consultant who absolutely skipped the vetting process. Vetting a candidate takes weeks and a lot of money. A lot of money. They talk to everyone that candidate has ever known, especially when you're at the level like the Senate. The consultant who put Graham Plattner in this race did an expedited vetting process that took 3 days. They didn't even talk to Graham Plattner. They missed his Reddit posts. They missed all the text messages that he sent to women who were not his wife. They missed his abusive relationships from his past. They missed that he sexually assaulted someone. And every woman on earth, especially if you've ever worked in tech, knows this story, right? Some guy who parachutes into a process that we know works and that is probably necessary to disrupt it because he's so much smarter. How many times have men who think they're being disruptors are actually just screwing over the rest of the country because they're lazy? Graham Plattner is trash. He's been trash. He stays trash. He's trash now, today, tomorrow, and forever. He has got to drop out.
Yes, indeed. Now let's listen to John Lovett and Tommy Vitor of the Pod Saves America podcast.
Shortly before we sat down to record this, Politico published a story in which one of the women in that Times story, Jenny Rassicot, a Democrat, gave more details about her experiences with Plattner. She said that in 2021, he showed up at her house, drunk, without being invited, went in, forced her to have sex with him against her will. She told Politico that she withheld those details because she did not want to be known as a rape victim. Tommy, what was your reaction to the story?
The allegations in the story are really bad and troubling. They seem credible. They're backed up by documentation. And so obviously the impact politically is not just what's in the story. It's this cumulative impact of a series of articles and allegations about him. And the feeling that he just has not been fully transparent and honest about some of the allegations, like you mentioned. I mean, there was this meeting in Washington a while ago where these questions were put to him directly, and the answer, I think, sounds like it was just no. And now there's all this reporting. When I interviewed Plattner about his Reddit posts and the tattoo, I was not aware of any of these allegations. None of this was public yet, just for the record, because I would have asked. My takeaway from that video was that he's going to drop out of the race. I think he has to drop out of the race. If he drops by the 13th, the main Democratic Party will choose a replacement by July 27th. I have no idea who they're going to choose. I'm very worried now about the prospect of winning this seat. If the party can get its act together, we ultimately could be in a stronger place politically than we would be with Plattner and all this baggage if these stories had come out later. I think the challenge is going to be, you had all these voters who turned out and voted for Graham Plattner despite the Reddit posts, despite the tattoos in, the story and all the other scandals. They were turning out to signal that they wanted something different and that they were angry at the establishment. And I don't know who in Maine can speak to that anger, but also has been vetted by the party and has been through the political process. Because look, as much as Janet Mills' supporters deserve to be angry and deserve the I told you so's they're saying today, the problem was that Maine voters were not supporting her. They didn't want to vote for her. And so, this wasn't some online vibes issue. It was what the electorate was saying in the state where it matters. So I think, I don't know where they go from here.
He has to end the campaign so that we have a chance of defeating Susan Collins. I think the story is horrible. What I took away from watching this video, from reading this story, is it is clear that this is somebody that has not maybe even been honest with himself about what was going on in the dark phases of his life.
Yeah.
But that is not for us to deal with in a Senate race that will determine the control of the Senate.
There you have it. All right. There's a little bit more. I've got Amanda Lippman, who I like and respect a great deal, from Run for Something. She made this video and posted it yesterday.
Plattner should not be a United States Senator, and he should not be the Democratic nominee for the United States Senate in Maine. Now, the challenge here is that Susan Collins should also not be a United States Senator. Now, there's going to be a lot to unpack here over the next couple of days and weeks as this plays out. Hopefully, he will drop out in time for the Democratic Party of Maine to pick a new candidate. And hopefully that new candidate will be able to win in November. I wrote a month ago about how all of this fucking sucks. When that story first broke about the sexual assault allegations, he was bad, the establishment was bad, Susan Collins is bad. It all sucks, all of it. But I do want to say just one thing, because I've seen this bubble up a lot. People saying no good people run for office. Why do only shitheads put their names on the ballot? And I want to be super clear here. That is not true. I Run for Something. We've recruited hundreds of thousands of people to raise their hands to run for office. We've endorsed more than 4,000 campaigns over the last decade. We've only had to rescind endorsements a handful of times. And in every scenario, it was for something that no credible vetting, no matter how deep you had dug, would have been able to find. Good people run and lead. You don't read about them because they don't take headlines, because competent public service isn't flashy and isn't exciting. We have teachers and nurses and parents and veterans and people who have gone through hell and come out the other side, using that journey to make them better leaders. Good people can and should run. Not all politicians are slimeballs. Many, especially the ones you tend to know more about, but many of them are good people trying to do the damn thing to make their communities better. Politics doesn't have to be the worst of us. It can actually be the best.
And just in case you think these are just left-wing hacks and they don't understand that it was all paid for by the Russians and the Israelis, some operation to destroy Graham Plattner or whatever conspiracy theories out there exist, here's Hassan Piker saying that he's done.
Politico, in 3 interviews over the past 2 weeks, Politico also spoke with a man Rascott dated and confided in the years after the alleged incident, and reviewed documents including emails between Rascott and her therapist and messages between Rascott and acquaintance. That is curtains. Okay. Mossad paid her ass? No. That is the trifecta. Okay. That is the trifecta of a reliable allegation. That's holy shit. Okay. Personal firsthand testimony to, a friend, a close confidant, back from way before Graham Plattner ever fucking ran for Congress. Are you kidding me? And then also direct testimony from a therapist. That is it.
It's over. I cut him off somehow. And finally, Molly Jong Fast on MS Now, reacting to it shortly after the news broke.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's one thing to have to have this first tranche. Remember, there was an earlier group of women, and now this is yet another tranche of allegations. And I think that, when you look at the polling on this, I just was looking at a poll that said 75% of people said that if there were more allegations, he should drop out. And I think this constant stream, and even you see the polling for him since the last batch of allegations, his numbers have gone down. I do think, look, I'm baffled that the vetting process for this candidate, number one. I mean, this is just, the fact that they're just constant, allegations, I think really is a sign that there just was not proper vetting here. And, you may, again, align with him politically, but the truth is, this is not a candidate who is ready for primetime on any stretch of the imagination. And Democrats have, there's a feeling in the party that candidates like this are not for the party. And, there has been a backlash to Me Too, but it has not been like this. The other thing I would say is that clearly this is a person who, at least from these allegations, that when drinking does not remember their behavior. That's what all these allegations say. So another reason why, I don't know how we got here, but this 17th, July 13th deadline seems to be key. And I think you see a person who is really coming forward when there's still time for him to drop out, which I think also shows that there's some feeling of this was just what she had to do. And the fact that there's so much on the women here when clearly this is, multiple women, multiple allegations, is just very upsetting.
Well, there you go. Molly Jung Fast and the rest of the crew on Graham Plattner. I don't know why I didn't get very robust clip show today, but for whatever reason, there just wasn't a lot out there, I think. I don't know. What did I miss? Whether it's a headline or a clip, send it to me. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. And finally, here is Tiffany Haddish, who was in for Jimmy Kimmel on Jimmy Kimmel Live. I think he takes the whole month of July off, so he gets guest hosts. Anyway, she had some jokes about the lack of attendance at the Trump State Fair or whatever it was called in D.C. over the weekend.
I'm going to be honest with y'all. There was more people at my bat mitzvah. I'm going to be real honest with you. There was more people at my DUI trial. Now, Trump was forced to delay his 4th of July speech due to the hot and stormy weather. In fact, some MAGA fans had to seek shelter in the African American History Museum. You're welcome again. That's right. It was so hot outside, a bunch of white grandpas had to learn about Frederick Douglass. Found out that was their cousin. Now...
All right, there you go. Very funny. Let's now get to my guest. It's Jonathan Larsen of The Fucking News on Substack. Real smart guy. He's had a great career producing a lot of news, and now for other people, big shows from MSNBC to comedian Marc Maron and a lot more. He's done it all, and he's got a great newsletter, which I wanted to promote, and I love talking to him. Very interesting perspectives. Great guy, Jonathan Larsen of The Fucking News and jonathanlarsen.substack.com. Links in the show notes each and every day to this guest and every guest. Jonathan and I actually sat down on Friday before the Graham Plattner news and before the 4th of July weekend festivities, but I thought this conversation was very relevant, and I learned a lot from his thoughtful, brilliant perspective. Let's do it. And I've got the great Jonathan Larsen of The Fucking News, which is a huge following. If you're not a subscriber there, you're missing out. It's so good. I don't know how you do it, but the in-depth coverage on some big news stories is unmatched, sir. I love it. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and it's always an honor and a privilege to join you and have a chance to connect with your audience. Obviously, you've got a huge fan base of your own, so thank you so much. It's
I'm a regular Hassan Piker.
Is anyone a regular Hassan Piker?
We've been working in media forever, and we both had really interesting, great careers, I think it's fair to say. But I do get a little envious and jealous of some young person that's smart and funny and a great communicator, passionate and so on, and that is able to harness, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, or Twitch or whatever, and just blow up overnight. And it's like, come on, struggle. It's like when I was, just doing stand-up and John Mulaney took off. I'm like, fuck you, you rich Georgetown bastard. Sorry.
I mean, in Hassan's defense, he was at it for a while before he became Hassan Piker. He was, he was at the Young Turks actually when I was at the Young Turks.
That's right. You must know him. He's a Nepo baby, isn't he? Does he ever get called that, Hassan Pike?
He's a Nepo nephew, I think, at best.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm all about calling out the Nepo, and I have no problem with people doing that with Hassan. But also, I don't think that I didn't see a lot of evidence that he took, that it took a Young Turks audience and, booster rocket to get him going. It seemed pretty organic. That said, I will never begrudge anyone resentment and seething envy towards anyone else.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. What about that? What about like the younger demographic, Gen Z and younger, and where, if they're paying attention to news and political news, that certainly affects their life, and where they are, because you could make a pretty good argument that the rise of the Democratic Socialists has a lot to do with young people organizing and showing up in primaries. They're not huge turnouts that are electing these DSA folks, whether it be in New York or Colorado, but what is turning out is mostly, I think, young people. And I'm just wondering, because I've had this kind of a little bit bitter generalization that they're too apathetic. I mean, I have 21 and 18-year-old daughters, and so I talk to a lot of young people, and sometimes I'm just kind of shocked, but it's all anecdotal. So what do you think about the youth and support for this kind of socialist movement?
I mean, obviously, I think it's great. I think it's a hideous self-own anytime mainstream centrist Democrats say, well, this doesn't count because they organized people and got them to care about things. It's like, oh, well, I didn't know that was
just because they got people out to organize and vote doesn't mean they're right. Well, fine, but I mean, they did it and you didn't because you're not appealing or you've been around too long or whatever else.
Or you're not doing it. Someone handed you all the tools of incumbency, of office, of media taking your calls, and you still couldn't do it against nobodies. What more powerful indictment is there of your fecklessness and uselessness, right? We saw them come out and say, well, they had new voters in their district. Okay, and they got them. And we see them come out and say, well, I was supposed to be able to anoint my successor for this district. I'm sorry, I thought you were the party that was running as the champion of democracy. And now you're telling us we did it wrong by choosing someone other than you anointed for the role? I'm a little confused on the messaging here.
Yeah, voters are supposed to be able to get to pick who they want. It doesn't always work that way, but that would be the ideal in a healthy, vibrant democracy, is my understanding.
Right. And you're not, if you want to anoint someone, make the case. You've got the platform, you've got all the advantages, and if you still can't make the case, you shouldn't get to choose. Right. You didn't earn it. You didn't win by the rules of the system that your running is defending. You got me all worked up here, Pete.
Oh, good. No, this is the subject of the day for sure, and I really wanted to get your take on it. You've been following this and covering this for a long time, and I appreciate your moral clarity and views on it. So, Jonathan, what is your overall view of some of the arguments and myths and so on with the media narratives that are forming around? I mean, it's really just started. I almost feel like, obviously, Mamdani, his election, I'm going to say started it. You could go back to Bernie, you could go to AOC, you could go to others, but let's just talk about where we're at right now. Trump 2, Mamdani gets elected. He's producing for New York, it would seem, and New Yorkers who elected him, and it spreads. It spreads to New York. It spreads to Colorado. It spreads to Wisconsin, LA. You can even call Graham Plattner is basically supportive of a lot of these policy ideas. And so what do you make of the narratives, the arguments that are forming around this? Because it's going to be a pretty interesting time for progressives, liberals, Democrats. I think we're going to end some friendships here.
Oh, I think that's probably the case, and I am okay with that. I think the call for unity, whether it's within a party or for the entire country, is a huge mistake, right? The founders didn't set up states and the federal government and cities and counties and also Congress and also the executive and also the judiciary for them to all unite. If you want them all to unite, you just say, one guy, right? Everyone does what he says. That's what uniting looks like. The point of the United States of America is to fight always and forever with each other. Now, that became toxic at a point. You know, you can blame it on Newt Gingrich back in the 90s if you want to, but the point is not to not fight.
Newt, but I'll also blame it on Russian right-wing media, Fox News, the rise of all that. But
there's any number of contributors, for sure. But I would argue that if you really are invested in uniting the country, this crazy radical left, their primary positions, their central platforms are wildly popular.
Wildly popular. Yeah.
They are centrists. They are the centrists. There's no disputing it. And it's, you know, occasionally I try to like put quotation marks around centrists when I talk about these folks. But the mainstream corporate media, they don't even do that. They just treat it as far
left or social.
Left.
Yeah.
And then here are these guys who are between the two. And so they must be in the center. No.
Right.
They are not.
Well, what are they even? I mean, I'm very interested in the policy debate and how it plays out between whatever they are. And labels do not matter. And everybody has a different Overton window, it would seem, in terms of where you put someone on the political spectrum, where you identify on the political spectrum. But as you said, the most important point to me is the policies that they support are overwhelmingly popular. I feel like, though, the interesting debate, Jonathan, could be just how Americans or people in general, this generation, whatever, views the role of government. And I think it's fair to say that when the wrong people are in charge of government, whether they're bad at it or they're corrupt, government doesn't work very well. And so we've had generations of people not seeing government work well or be accountable or be corrupted. And so people have either gotten cynical and will never come back to the political process, or maybe they will when they see government doing good things in the public interest of, say, the middle class or the majority of us. And that's what it seems like these DSA candidates want to do. They want to make government work for you. And the right especially has been demonizing government and just using it to punish us and steal government contracts for their own. And I feel like that is one of the more important outcomes, that if your view on government, and you're only going to change it if you actually see something, anything in your city, in your town, or in your state or your country that says, oh my gosh, this is actually good. I'm glad in this.
I think you have hit on the key threat posed by these people. It's not what they stand for so much. It's not what they're advocating for. It's not even that they're out organizing and more popular. The real threat they pose, I think, is that they can wipe away half a century of scaremongering and show that it's possible to do these things and that it doesn't make your city blow up. We're on the verge of seeing New York City return to something like, you know, an FDR vision of what a good, healthy city can be. And the real problem, I think, that progressives or socialists, however you want to define them, face right now is that we didn't have a massive, identifiable turning point. We've had slow motion frog boiling for half a century. The New Deal's reforms, which of course created the middle class, created all the things that the quote unquote centrists say they're nostalgic for, right? The things that everyone agrees.
They were seen as very radical at the time.
Among some quarters, but the people loved it. The people loved it. Among some quarters, it was radical. But now that's the era that MAGA is nostalgic for. But the problem is that it's not as though Republicans came in and, I mean, hell, you had Eisenhower in there who basically shepherded the same regimen. Even Nixon, to a large extent, had that view of government, created the EPA, you know, but at some point in the 60s and then more in the 70s and certainly more under Reagan, slowly these things got taken away. Top marginal tax rates got taken down slowly. So there was no bright identifiable moment when everyone said, you know, it wasn't like the eye doctor. How about now? How about now? It wasn't like that. It was cataracts.
That's a really great analogy. And I like what you're saying, a massive or bright identifiable moment or turning point where what? Though, Jonathan, where the progressive movement could lay claim to major success?
No, just the opposite, where the New Deal went away.
Got it.
Right? Repealed the entire thing, brought tax rates down to 1928 levels.
Slow crumbling.
Erased the entire social safety net.
Right.
Did it overnight. Libraries shuttered, fire departments and police privatized. Just do it. Do all of it in one fell swoop so we can compare before and after, right? Oh, I choose that side. That was better. Right now we're in this weird space. This is a point I keep wanting to make on the Substack, which is we apparently, by some coincidence, are at the perfect level of socialism for centrists. Right? None of these Democrats are saying, oh, you know what? We got to close libraries. That's socialism. We got to stop paving roads without charging people for it. That's socialism. It just so happens that the socialism we have at the moment they're talking, that's the right amount. But we can't have any more. Can never have any more socialism because that would be socialism.
Especially if it comes to healthcare, which Medicare is as American as apple pie for any American over 65, but for any American under 65, it's communism.
Right. So you go to 64, you're a crazy man, Pete Doctor.
There's so much more to say about this moment and those who are stepping up. Are you surprised by the types of candidates who are winning in these primaries, these Democratic primaries?
I am not because I think they're crazy or I think that people don't like what they stand for. Even now, post 2016, 2020, 2024, I'm still capable somehow of being shocked at generational Democrats not being able to hold on to their seats. AOC was in all the newspapers when she won. Like, How do you not see that coming? How do you not make sure that you have a robust support from your community, not just, the commander-in-chief of the local Elks Club liking you, right? How do you not know that you've got an army out there willing to take to the streets for you? That's crazy to me.
There's so often you hear it's not enough to just be anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-Project 2025. It's not enough just to run on holding him and all of his corrupt friends and stupid sons accountable, which I'll believe it when I see it. I haven't seen accountability in this country in my lifetime. We could talk about patriotism later, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's missing from people my age, our age. But it's very interesting to see that this is happening now, and I just worry that maybe they're going to tear each other apart, and the progressive movement is not going to be able to get things done, and they're going to be some stalemate, and they're going to go after Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, which I think they should, but that it's, they're going to lose the majorities. I think one of the most impressive things that Speaker Nancy Pelosi was able to do was to herd those cats and get them on the same page to, as you and I both know, pass some pretty progressive legislation out of the House. Never got out of the Senate, of course, but when Barack Obama was president, she was Speaker of the House, they passed a lot of progressive legislation, meaning they got enough 218 Democrats to vote. I wonder if the Democrats are going to have this kind of civil war within the party and ideology and not be able to actually achieve what they are promising Americans they will.
So, in line with what I said before, I would kind of say that I hope they do have a civil war, and I think that's how you achieve. I don't think unity über alles, and obviously I'm not putting those German words in your mouth, but I don't think this worship of unity has a good track record of getting us anywhere. And there's plenty of, valid complaints about Nancy Pelosi putting her thumb on the scale and preventing robust, engagement. That's another thing, is that why would we expect people to be engaged if there's no civil war? Like, if no one's fighting for things, they're just in the back rooms agreeing on what to say they agree on. Why would anyone pay attention to that? It's just, it's a fait accompli. Show us the fight. let us see the fight, right? The Republican Party has been at war with itself to some extent in the public sphere since 2016 or 2015, if you want to go back to the beginning of the campaign. And they've won the legislature, the Supreme Court, and 2 out of 3 of those presidential races. So I really, I get the nervousness, right? The skittishness about, oh no, if they fight, we can't win. Well, maybe, but I'm not sure that that's how the founders envisioned things.
It's a really good point. It's something worth considering. Jen Champion in the live chat says, nah, Pete, they will tear each other apart and the DS will prevail. Think that's right?
Well, it depends on how the fight goes. And, I wouldn't want to say prevail versus not prevail. I think on some things, they probably will prevail. I think they're pushing fairly, as we discussed, fairly mainstream, popular, wildly popular centrist positions. So if, I was reading a Wall Street Journal editorial about the need for Democrats to push back on this. And they listed 3, DSA platforms, and it was all things everyone wants,
Yeah. The one situation that could be sticky, and who knows, is Israel and genocide, and that being a real test, especially, I think, and just let's just fast forward for a second for whoever the nominee for president would be in 2028. If the country survives and we make it to that election.
Hey now, come on. We're going to get there, man.
If you say so, I trust you. You're smarter than I am. But I think that Chris Hayes, it was, who I like, you worked with Chris Hayes, right? He made this kind of comparison between the Democratic candidates running in 2008 and where they were on the Iraq War. And arguably Barack Obama became the nominee because he was against the war. And he's basically saying that will be similar for 2028 with presidential candidates on Israel. Did you support Israel during their genocide? That will be the question, or some version of it. Do you agree with that? And do you think it should be?
I don't. And I'm not sure anything should be the litmus test. I just think attention spans are so much shorter.
Yeah.
I believe the death toll for the U.S. end of the Iran war is 13 people. So I think that the U.S. stake emotionally and materially in the Middle East right now is orders of magnitude different from what it was in 2008. So my guess is that there will be 50 other things between now and then that'll be jostling for it by that time. But that said, I do think it'll be a factor, and I do think that we're going to have to grapple, I think, nationally in 2028 in the presidential election with the question of not only are we willing to arm Israel, but are we willing, as both Biden and Trump did, to illegally arm Israel? Right?
Yeah.
That's a question. And it seems to me that, we don't even see DSA candidates out there, as far as I'm aware, saying, you know what, we need accountability for the people in the Secretary in the State Department or anywhere else who signed off on patently illegal arms shipments to Israel, which we cannot do by law if they are being used to commit human rights abuses. We did it anyway. Biden signed off on it. There's, to your point earlier, we're now multiple generations without any experience of real accountability.
Yeah, certainly not on anything, I would argue. I've had that debate before, but certainly not on our military misadventures, which I would call war crimes, which destroyed arguably the war in Iraq. The worst consequence was that it empowered Iran, actually destabilizing Iraq and the region, and helped create the situation that we now find ourselves in. All right, I've mostly been talking about Democrats with you and the current situation there, but you have the best piece over at thefuckingnews.substack.com on Trump's corruption that I've seen. It's titled "Trump Fleeced His Sheep." Disclosure form shows that Trump redistributed more than $1 billion last year from his crypto fans to him. And you go in depth on this piece, but it's a great reason to subscribe to thefuckingnews.substack.com. And bear with me here, Jonathan, because I'm going to just try to make this point, and I'm going to bumble through it here, but it's one thing to be a horrific racist and white supremacist. It's another thing to be a rapist, and allegedly you're credibly accused by dozens of women, and we know more, of horrible things. It's another thing to be just a complete asshole every day, destroying all the things, and the corruption itself is bad. But I feel like I've always said the thing about Donald Trump is he has all of the worst qualities a person can have. Like, think of someone that you don't like and why he's got that quality. He's just this dishonest piece of shit. He's a terrible person. But a lot of those crimes and a lot of those things, his crimes against women, they affect those women for sure. And his views on race and gender have affected so many Americans. But to me, the corruption scheme affects so many more people. And in some ways, it's such an egregious crime. I can't think of too many crimes, white collar, that are worse than even the violent crime. The violent crime affects the victim and the family. But when you take people's hard-earned retirements and you scam them, that's or when you hire someone and you don't pay them, that affects so many. That's the worst kind of crime, to take somebody's hard-earned retirement. And this crypto scheme enriched Donald Trump. But the most important point to me is everybody would invest in it, and I don't have a lot of sympathy for them, but thousands, tens of thousands of people lost money for him to get rich. That's what so much of his career is. And that to me seems like the most egregious of all of the things that he is. Now I'm done.
Well, I actually don't cover corruption a lot, because just as a percentage of everything that's going on, it's relatively minuscule. Like, I would say, if I had to say one thing that's impacted the most people and ruined the most lives, I would argue maybe the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, stripping millions of people of food aid and medical.
You win.
You win.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't making it a contest.
My cards down on the table. Yeah, you're right about that.
But the thing is, the real thing about both of them is the scandal with them is not that it's a crime. It's that it's not a crime, right? These things were all legal. That to me is the problem.
James Comer's saying he does it in front of everybody.
Yeah. Well, right. That's the thing.
What do you mean? You can't, just because you murder someone in front of people, but doesn't make it not a crime.
The reason it's effective is because the only tool Democrats have used to pursue accountability for generations has been shame. They thought, because it used to work, all they had to do was say, you did a bad. And then that person would maybe go, oh, I did a bad. You're right. I did a bad.
Right.
Trump is like, yeah, I did.
Well, that bill, by the way, shame still works for Democrats running for office.
Sorry?
Shame still works for Democrats running for office.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
But the reason I like the corruption, especially, and I did write about this today as well, especially with the crypto stuff, is that the real problem we face with MAGA is the time delay, right? How long it takes them to figure it out, right? How many stories have we seen where someone's spouse got deported and they were like, I didn't realize this might affect me.
Right.
And with crypto, it was instant. It was before and after. Buy my crypto. Okay, here's my money. And then wham, it goes down. Trump walks away with their money. It's so crystal clear.
I'm surprised you don't see a lot of victims of that scam, like that Democrats or strategists have found to speak out against it. Like, yeah, I invested in it.
Yeah, no, they are. Politico, I quoted some of the people they talked to in this morning, because Politico talked to people at a crypto conference or before a crypto conference earlier this year, a year after Trump coin made its launch. And one of the people said, I hate that coin. And another said, fuck that coin.
Oh, yeah, well.
And it's like, I love that, but also it was like, the coin didn't do it, people. You're so close. You're so close.
Right. Oh, that's funny. You go through it and cover the best reporting over at this piece, and everybody should read it. You also have this great section, metaphor alerts. The the reflecting pool, the Great American State Fair. Tell people about what you're getting at here, because this is so sad. And if it wasn't so sad, it would be funny. But go ahead.
Well, I did a long piece actually on the Great American State Fair, which is sort of heartbreaking. But as a metaphor, it's absolutely perfect, because Congress set wheels in motion 10 years ago to arrange bipartisan, unifying, in a good way, events for us to celebrate the 250th. Then last year, Trump came in. He said, I want my own thing. He gutted America 250, set up this incompetent, inexperienced, impulsive, stupid, self-indulgent, arguably corrupt Freedom 250 operation to do it instead. How did that work out? I mean, anyone who's on social media for 30 seconds is going to see pictures of the empty Great American State Fair. It's just a joke. Literally everywhere you turn, there's not a single thing that they have done well. So that to me is just emblematic of that's why it's a metaphor. I alone can do it. Well, you alone did do it, and you couldn't. And it was an easy thing. It was a state fair, which states do every year on their own without 100.
Well, yeah, but if you do it the way that he did it, where his people did it, it's not an easy thing, because you can't make it be about the one guy. Like a state fair everywhere in the country that has state fairs. I grew up, my first job was at the New York State Fair. They're awesome for a lot of obvious reasons, but it's not some kind of idolatry. And that's what he's doing. Like everything else, they're making it about him. And it's just not fun for everybody. That's why no one is going and enjoying it and walking out. They're like, yeah, it was kind of like a Trump fest, not to America 250 is my understanding. Yeah.
Although even if you take Trump out, if you look at exactly what's at the Great American State Fair, it's not on the surface at ground level. If you're walking through, it's not super Trumpy. It's just sucky. It's terrible.
Not super. My understanding is, I don't know, but no one, a lot of states that every state's participating in the different marketplace there on the lawn, they didn't have their heart in it. Like Hawaii sent lawn chairs. Here you go. No one that is producing it is talented or putting interesting things there for anybody to really want to enjoy, and including the performances, which are so unbelievable cringe for a performer like me who's performing in front of plenty of small and empty rooms. It's hard to see. I don't have any sympathy for them, but it is still pathetic.
Yes. But I think both things are true, and I think they complement each other. Yeah. It has been formulated and marketed as a paean to Trump. And also, even if you are okay with that, once you get there, there's nothing to do. It's all sucky. So, it's almost a beautiful thing to have that for our birthday to remind us of how we actually get good, cool things done. And I actually ended that piece. It was a pretty long piece on the Great American State Fair, reminding people that America 250, the congressional organization, they didn't go away. They've actually been, organizing Sail 250, which is all these great tall ships and air shows that have been going to ports all the way from New Orleans up to Boston. They're going to be in New York this weekend. And, hundreds of thousands of people have been showing up, having a good time, not caring about partisan politics, and just, sort of appreciating and taking a moment to consider how far we've come, what we've achieved, the impressiveness technically of the ships that are out there, the boats, the air shows, all of that. So I hope people don't get so focused on the shittiness of Trump stuff that they lose sight of the continuing persistent reality of the pre-Trump and hopefully post-Trump America that we're all craving so much. It's still out there. People can go and be in it.
Check out Sail 250. I'd be more interested in Cruise Ship 250. That'd be more American. This fucking awful cruise ships sailing around, norovirus. That's America. With a bunch of anti-vaxxers on them. What could be more American than that? Sail 250, cruise 250. That's Americana. I'm looking. Speaking of corruption, one more thing I got to ask you though about it is this plane not enough. I feel like is being made of the fact that he got a plane quote gifted to him. He asked for it from Qatar, and he said it was a gift, and that he's going to keep it for his presidential library, so no other president is going to be able to use it. But he talks about it being a gift, but it was $1 billion that American taxpayers paid to refurbish this quote gift that he's going to keep. And it's not a metaphor. It's a flying corrupt object. And I feel like not nearly enough is being made of it. I saw ABC's, White House correspondent Mary Bruce, who I generally, I'm fine with, but basically get on the plane yesterday, giddy. The maiden voyage of the new plane. I'm like, you're a reporter. Context of how he got that plane and why it's such a terrible thing. What are your thoughts on the plane and how, big of a deal should be or shouldn't be made of this disaster?
I mean, maybe this is a little bit of a cop-out, but to me, any of these examples always come back to, what are you going to do about it? Right?
Yeah, I like it.
And, that makes me look like I'm anti-Democrat or whatever, because it's on them. It's on them and us to do something about it. But the reality is, if you have a bank that keeps getting robbed, you can sit there and yell at the bank robbers, but at some point you've got to look at your security system and say, you know what? We should hire a guard.
Yeah, or have some regulations, God forbid. All right, 2 more big questions for Jonathan Larsen. If you're not subscribed to the fucking news, you're missing out. He does great work every day, and he's been at it for a while and has a lot of credibility. And credibility should be the currency that we all use to evaluate who we're going to need subscriptions for. Your reputation is your currency, and Jonathan's is sterling, according to me, which means nothing. But still, I'm saying it, and I was Stephen Colbert's fluffer. That should matter. All right. This Supreme Court term has ended, and there's a lot to say about it. I feel like because of your answer to the last question and your view on things, the what are you going to do about it might be the question. And so should Democrats and anybody running for president, should they in their platform have how they're going to reform the Supreme Court, whether it be add justices or any other ideas, have, term limits, any of it? How big of a deal do you think it's going to be in the campaign, the court and reform?
Not enough. Not enough.
Isn't it anything? Do you not think it should be? I mean,
no, I'm saying I think it should be more than it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because that's literally the court of last resort, right? Everything else, if you don't have that, you've got nothing. So, I think there's a fair, valid debate out there, I think, about which is most politically effective, whether it's packing the court by increasing the number of justices or impeaching some of them. I wrestle with this a little bit because I feel like we see Democrats too often act as though they have to make a monolithic decision about what are we going to do, right? What are we going to do about the Supreme Court? And to some extent, that's a useful tactical decision to have. But the reason Trump has been so lethally effective is because it's not monolithic. He just says, he brings in people who are toxic in the right way, and he says, go out and fuck with shit. Right? And he does this with, dozens and dozens of people, and they don't have to have some big meeting where they all decide this is how we're going to do it. So you have to shut up about the way you want to do it. Like, just let people represent their districts and their states. And if they are okay not impeaching Clarence Thomas, then they can be answerable to their voters for that. I would really like to see members of the Democratic Party in both chambers really sort of dethrone the leadership at least a little bit and, stop insisting on this idea that everyone has to fall in line with everything. This goes back, not to be a broken record, but let them fight. Let them fight. I reported on Kirsten Gillibrand last year. She was happy to fight in defense of voting for Trump budgets last year, but only behind closed doors. Right? Enough of this stuff where your real arguments are made behind closed doors. I even reported earlier this year. Just to give an example here, Gillibrand did, after she got Senate Democrats to back down from threatening a shutdown. This was in the spring of 2025. She did a podcast, a religious podcast, where the guy pushed back on her a little bit and said, well, what's your plan for stopping these people? But again, totally in a religious context. Gillibrand is in a prayer group or a Bible study group or both with John Thune. And what she told the podcaster was, I know John Thune and he'll be there to stop Trump when we need him. And it's like, that seems like a fairly stupid thing to say, especially in hindsight, given everything that John Thune did not stop. But if that's your position, your voters should know that. Your constituents, the entire state of New York, should know that your plan, Kirsten Gillibrand, is John Thune's coming to the rescue. This is part of why I think the fight needs to be more out in the open. So we learn, where do you stand? What's your reasoning?
I don't know when Gillibrand's term or Schumer's term is up, but I'm a New Yorker and I look forward to them being primaried. So we'll see when that happens. All right. Last question I wanted to ask you is, one of the things we touched on is government doing good things for people makes a huge difference. And we're seeing that with some of these. We're seeing it in New York. We're seeing it in certain other places, and we've seen it over our lifetime in different places, but not nearly enough. So you see no bipartisanship anymore on anything. But Democrats and Republicans passed a bill on housing and to make it more affordable and all kinds of stuff in this bill. And Trump said he's not going to sign it unless the Senate passes the SAVE Act, making it harder for people to vote. Arguably, it could make it harder for Republicans. And it's a crazy, said more simply, we're not going to make housing more affordable and better for developers and all of the interests in housing unless you allow us to make voting harder. That's right. What I want to simplify. But what do you make of that bill and the fact that they can't get good things done for anyone in this current situation with a Republican House, Senate, and a cartoon villain president?
Well, look, I would say that the Trump's position on this is pretty clear. He's going to lower the price, the price of rent to your right to vote. That's how cheap rent is going to be now. Oh, that's all you need to do. Give me a right to vote. But I don't think that I don't think the problem is that we're not getting enough bipartisan bills through. It's arguable how much this bill is actually going to do for rental rates in the first place, right? The impact of what it does, right, is it limits the ability of private equity to monopolize the rental markets, but they're not exactly monopolizing it at the moment. So even this, it seems to me like is arguably just sort of a panacea for Republicans to throw to their voters and say, hey, I voted to make your rent lower. It's like, I certainly support limiting private equity in private homes, but I'm not sure that I worried that too many of these things, especially bipartisan things, are really just Band-Aids that Democrats in good faith want to apply to say, we know the system sucks. Here's a cracker and a Band-Aid and some water, and you're going to make it through this. And it's like, that's not what you're here for.
I feel like I just gave blood.
You're here to change
cracker,
the system.
Band-Aid, and water. That's really, I just gave up blood.
Not even Lorna Doones. But very few people, except DSA and their allies, are saying we need to change the system fundamentally so that you don't need to worry about getting crackers and water right before
structural change is what we need, not Band-Aids.
Upheaval, yeah, FDR style, because FDR has been basically, the New Deal's been whittled down to a nub. So you gotta,
not only the New Deal, but civil rights and voting rights as well, which came in a different era. It's amazing to see how fast they've been able to unravel that. And so, Democrats fighting to restore civil rights and voting rights should be hammering those initiatives, I think, in their campaigns right now.
Yeah. Although that's an interesting dynamic there. I read a piece about how there was a reshuffling of how state districts were drawn back in the early 80s with good intention to give Black representatives districts that were, reflected the people who lived there.
Right.
But it also ended up having a really bad effect, and 10 years later contributed to the Gingrich wave, because Black politicians were no longer sort of forging alliances with white progressives. And so to some extent it weakened the South, and to some extent it's blamed for Democrats losing big swaths of the South. And one of the things, I don't want this to sound like I'm saying this was a good thing, but one of the silver linings, one of the gorgeous silver linings out of all this redistricting and the Supreme Court decisions taking away majority-minority districts in southern state after southern state, Louisiana and others, is that we're now seeing these groundswells of organization where people realize, oh, if my districts are being drawn to disempower me, I'm going to have to get a lot more people here on my side and engaged.
Right.
Yes. Let's do it. Let's go.
Motivating organization and it's something about when you're disrespected and undignified, it motivates people to do something, to take action in this case.
And one of the things I love about the Trump presidency, for all the awful things, is that the Newtonian nature of our politics is still intact. There's enough of the machinery left that when they do evil crap with gerrymandering, people still have other outlets, better organizing, funneling money where it needs to go. The fight is still happening. And the real threat of the Trump administration, I think, was going to be that all the mechanisms for fighting would go away. They're all still basically intact. They've been beat up. They've been, broken, but people are still out there finding a way to use them every day.
Well, I'm feeling inspired and hopeful talking to you. So that's great. I love it. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me.
Really thank you, Pete.
Go subscribe right now to the fucking news.substack.com. If you're not already, Jonathan does great work. And I appreciate you watching live. If you did, I love reading the live chat. Thank you for your contributions. And I will talk to you all later and soon. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Pete.
Bye, everybody. Yeah, there you go. Jonathan Larsen, go subscribe. That is it. That's all I've got. I'll be back later today. Should be live with Jeff Jarvis around 11. So subscribe to Substack to watch it there. Although, is he on Substack? Can I go live on Substack? Check YouTube. If not, I'm usually live on one or the other, sometimes both, although I have struggled to make that work. You guys are the best, though, for supporting this old man as I work away each and every day to get enlightened and take you on the journey along with me, supporting each other in all the ways that we can. Join the Discord platform, and you're never alone if you're a member of the stand-up community. And that is all I've got for you. Be the change you want to see in the world. John Carroll, take us out.
When the tyrants taunt you and the sirens teach, you better stand up, stand up. Let the brave meet the challenge, let the weak flee. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up on your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you gotta stand up, stand up. I think you're driving wheels in leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up, that's right. You got to rise up, you got to stand up, you got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, down off start making sense and you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. Alright, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to know, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.